volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes it all happen. Our guest in this segment is Will Smith, and Will is the head tech guy for ICTV and usually the director of the program as well. And Will, you're going to start by introducing a clip.
Yes, I'd like to just talk about what a great time I've had over the past, I guess it's been about a year and a half working on this show and being a videographer, learning all the different facets of this form of communication technology. And I'm so grateful to you, and I'm grateful to the staff here at Shaw, because I've just felt so welcomed. And I feel like I'm getting an advanced education on all this stuff, and it's free.
And it's free, yeah. And please don't be grateful to me, because I don't remember doing anything except sort of standing there.
Well, I'm grateful for
yeah,
you
nice
allowing me to help you with the show and put up with my faults and foibles as well as everything else. Yeah. But I've just experienced such a shift in consciousness working on this show, and I'd like to show one of my videos that I just finished, just to sort of introduce our talk. So this is a video of a string group that I took a few weeks ago in Langford, and I just want to show you what I've learned how to do, because a year and a half ago I didn't have a clue on how to do this.
Yeah, amazing.
You spend as much time, energy, and money as necessary to make sure your children get the food they need for their bodies. What are they feeding their minds and spirits? not take your young people to some world-class chamber music right here in Victoria? Tickets are free for students and donations are gratefully accepted.
So that video lasts a little bit over 4 minutes, and it took me probably 2 or 3 hours to edit and to make up the story and everything else. And I had no clue about how to do this, and it's really fun. And so I think it's great that, I mean, that's what I want to do with ICTV, with our independent community television Victoria, is keep doing that, keep showing what's so great about living here in Victoria and what great people we all are, and get away from the negativity. I mean, if you look at the stuff on the news, it's like a rerun. You've seen, how many car wrecks have you seen? Is that really that exciting? I mean, to me, a string quartet is much more exciting than a car wreck, and it's new, and it's full of energy, and it's vibrant. So, and
it shows what great talent there is around the city.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to say that I've learned so much, and that's what's really key to me. Is I've gotten, I don't have a college degree. I just have high school, and so to me, this is a big deal because I'm starting my third career now in doing this sort of thing, and folding it in with music, learning to be a real musician instead of just someone who fools around with music. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the education system, and what I've learned is, from my own experience, is I think we try to make kids fit into boxes too much, and so I'd just like to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I agree. I think that's the number one problem with our education system, is that instead of saying to all these incredibly talented children, be the best that you can be, instead the education system says this is what you have to be, and if you can't do it, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, so I mean, I tried to go to college a couple of times because my father really wanted me to go, and I mean, I was under the illusion at that point. I went through grade school and high school, and I had a great time in both of those places because the curriculum was pretty much set, and they taught me lots of great things. But then when I got to college, the first thing, I went to my advisor, and he said, "What do you want to major in?" And I said, "Well, I want to major in physics and English." And he said, he just laughed at me. He said, "You can't do that. It's too far apart." So I left, and I decided, I made a quality decision at some point during that time that I would rather know how to do something and be able to do it than get a certificate that says I know how to do something, and because it's not the same thing. And that was later in my later life, when I was president of a corporation on hiring people. I noticed that people with the more education they had, the more they expected to be paid just because they know something, not because they could really necessarily do anything for me, but just they had this degree. And so I typically, I mean, even in engineering positions, I had people who had no degrees, because I could just say, I need this problem solved, do it. And they'd figure it out, and I wouldn't tell them how to do it, they just do it. So I think that that's one of the things that we can learn from this, is that kids need to have the freedom to find out what they want. I mean, I remember when I was 12 years old in 8th grade, somebody was trying to convince me to be a dentist. I don't want to be a dentist. That's not what I wanted to do. They didn't say, what would you like to do? They just said, they gave me a test and said, well, you'd be a good dentist.
Well, if my dentist is watching, I just want to say I love dentists.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't like dentists. No, don't get me wrong.
I'm joking.
I think dentists are great. It's just that, you know, I mean, or another thing, I went back to college, and because my dad just wanted me to be able to work for him. Actually, I started apprenticing with him, and my math teacher, my calculus teacher, made me do all this busy work. I didn't keep my notebook. I got good grades on the tests and good grades on class participation and quizzes, but I didn't do my notebook. And so he said, well, you're going to get a C then, because you have to do your notebook. Well, I had lots of other things, but that really annoyed me, that he wanted me to spend 2 hours just doing busy work. Why can't I do what I want to do? I want to play the piano, or I want to do something, make something electronic or a computer system or something. I don't want to do busy work. So I left college, and I told my dad, look, let's find somebody that I can get tutored in accounting for. And I put an ad in the paper, and I found a guy. He was a professor at Arizona State University, and he said, I'm so glad I found this ad, because I was going back to teaching a class at ASU, and I'm in a student, I have 200 students who don't want to learn. And I'd much rather teach one person who wants to learn than 200 people who don't. So that was a big lesson to me too. So I just think that kids need to find out what they really like to do and then do it. It's never been a problem for me. I mean, whatever I do, at some point somebody says, hey, I want that, I'll pay that guy to do that for me. He's doing good work.
It would be nice if the system kind of encouraged that whole thing, because that sounds good to me. I think it's more of what we need. And it would be nice if the system kind of moved people along in those ways. I think it would be a better system for all of us and for our society.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show you one other thing. When I was about, I guess about 28, I started an automation company, and I was in North Georgia at the time, and there was a lot of carpet making there. So I found a guy who had a carpet machine, and it would make carpets, and he had this really primitive thing where he had some film and some lights that shone through the film. And so when he wanted to make a carpet, here's a carpet we made. I found this at my mom's house she kept this as a memento. But anyway, he'd have to count the stitches, and he'd make these little dots on the film, and then it would make the machine work. And so, can you see that okay?
So you put together the equipment and the computer,
yeah,
so that the equipment could make
he never said, do you have a college degree? He just said, can you make my machine run on a computer? I said, yeah, sure. So I got an Apple II. I got two of them, and I hooked one up to the machine, and then I put one in the office where he was designing these things. And I don't know, it took about 3 months or so, and we made a computer system. And then he had a real company eventually take over that had, you know, many people in it that they could actually build the stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's no end of stories about people who have made $1 million even though they're, you know, not the sharpest tool in the shed. So it's just a matter of passion, of finding something that you really like and doing it so that you focus on that. And then I just want to fold that into consciousness, because I started, after talking on the last show, I started talking a little bit about magic, how this stuff looks like magic that people are doing when they're doing this this quantum physics type stuff. And so I want to use the same piece of carpet and just show you that if you look at this is kind of like our reality. The carpet design is our reality. And then if you look at the back, you've got, okay, now you count the stitches, and you can see there's a red thread here and a black thread here. So that's more like the information, and you can express that information in a lot of different ways. You can express it as, you could make a code that says blue is B and red is R, and you know, you could write this code, and you could look at the code, and that doesn't look like that carpet, but nevertheless, it's the carpet. So quantum physics is kind of like that. Quantum physics doesn't really have anything to do with reality. If you look at what they're saying in quantum physics, they use terms like strangeness, they're up quarks, down quarks, they've just taken words out of the air that don't mean anything. So really that's a lot like what we're talking about with the information domain, with this stuff that's magic. So I went and I started reading books about magic. And the first book I looked at, one of the books was about Celtic and Norse magic. And it was very interesting. One of the first things was, magic is the ability to change consciousness at will. Now, isn't that an interesting definition? I would never have come up with that for magic, would you? A definition?
I still wouldn't come up with it even tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And then I did some more.
Or it makes great sense.
I found a book on Huna, and the Huna in Hawaii. So I just want to talk about that kind of we don't have too much time left, but. So these Huna are magicians, and that's how their society ran. And then
Are they people who lived
in Hawaii?
Okay.
Now they still live there. Okay. It still exists, but it's illegal, so they don't show it. But when the United States took over Hawaii, they made it illegal. The Christian missionaries came in and they made it all illegal, and so that was hidden. But this guy came in. His name is Max Freedom Long, and he studied them for many years, and he wrote a book. It's called The Secret Science of Miracles, I think, and you can look it up on the internet. I'll put a banner here, and you can either buy it or you can even find an Acrobat version and download it and just read it on your computer. It tells about his study of magic over many decades in Hawaii, and it's very interesting because what he found out was he just sort of gave up. And then he woke up in the middle of the night once, and he had this idea that if he could just locate the symbols or the words that they're using to do this magic, that would be a key. And so he wrote a little pamphlet on the origin, on the words, on the actual words, and he published it. And it took a couple of years, but an English professor from England said, that's really interesting, because he was actually a journalist. I'm sorry, I confused him with somebody else. But anyway, he was in the Atlas Mountains in North Africa, and he found a tribe that used those same words. Now, how did that happen? A tribe in North Africa, and the
Huna.
Yeah, kahuna, yeah. And the interesting thing, I mean, it started off with, they have kahuna also in their language, but it's spelled with a Q. And then all these other words. And they tell the story, so he went and investigated them, and they tell a story how in a long time ago, they needed to disperse. They needed to send some of their people out. And so they did what we would call remote viewing, which the U.S. government engages in to find out stuff, military intelligence. And they found these islands in the Pacific, and so they sent off a contingent of people to settle these islands, which are the Polynesian Islands and Hawaii. And these linguistic roots are the same. So, I mean, you know, how does this happen? And since I'm from Arizona, I kind of make the connection with Kachina, because the Navajos and the Hopis have Kachinas, and they're magic too. So these are suspicious, you know. So anyway, so if you read this book, it just talks about.
We're not going to be able to read the book.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just would encourage everybody to take a look at this stuff. I know it's woo-woo, but we've got to develop a different way of thinking, and we need to go back to these guys, the shamans and the people who used to know how to do this stuff that we've shut up.
Okay. I agree. Will, thank you very much, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching this segment of Citizens Forum.